a solid B. That is the rating that I give to the G-Shock GD-010. A solid B. And the B is for big, bold, and basic. And what's wrong with a solid B? It has 80% of what you want. Maybe it's missing that 20%, but for $110, really, you can't go wrong with the GD-010. It's a good watch to have. I'll give you a rundown of its basic functions. And I mean, you can see right off the bat how it's big. And I'm not just talking about the body of the watch, because the body of the watch, it's not at all unmanageable. It is a good size. It is larger than a lot of watches, but definitely not large for a G-Shock. And then the functionality is basic. Let me just tell you something, guys. For the past few months, I've been wearing the G-Shock Mudmaster GWG B1000. $800 is what I paid for it. The price went up to $880, and this is a premium watch. And so after wearing this for, like 2 months, I put on the GD-010 a couple days ago. And, in some ways it was refreshing, okay? Because the design of the body of the G-Shock GD-010, it kind of splays out more. And so there's a lot of area between your wrist and the watch and the corners that gives it kind of a breezy feeling, an easy breezy feeling, And then with some of the G-Shock watches, like the Mudman or the Mudmaster, there's wings. And the wings add protection. It keeps the watch from sliding around, but it can feel kind of like you're wearing cuffs, like a gauntlet. Like it can feel kind of cumbersome, Not so with the GD-010. It's carefree watch. Like you wear it, you'll want to frolic. Okay, so yes, I was frolicking while wearing the watch. I was actually doing the chains in my son's football game. So that's where I was wearing it the other day. Those of you who saw my YouTube short know that I was also wearing the GBDH2000, try and give it some more sunlight to get that solar charging, see if it could bring it back from the dead. All right, and it did not. So next test will be to plug it in. Okay, but anyways, we're looking at the GD-010. Stop getting sidetracked by my other videos. No solar charging on the GD-010. Some of you would want to see that, but that is what you'd get out of an A+ watch. An A tier watch would have that solar charging, like like the GW6900, and this is my special NASA edition. It has a multi-band 6, a tough solar. And that's what we want out of a G-Shock watch. It doesn't seem like Casio really understands that. A lot of times they release watches without multi-band 6, without solar charging. And this is one of them, okay? But it's all right on the GD-010 that they don't have the solar charging, nor do they have the multi-band 6, just because the basic nature of the watch is what makes the GD-010 so appealing, okay? So what functions do we have on here? Well, on the main time screen, there is a little bit of extra on the main time screen. We'll come back to that. But let me just cycle through the modes, give you a quick rundown. We have the main time screen. Then we have a world time, which has your second time zone. And then you have your alarms, which include an hourly signal. And how many alarms are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the hourly time signal. So no snooze. Sniper King was asking me, or he mentioned that the Mudmaster did not have a snooze alarm. I failed to mention that. I did not even notice that. I do not use the snooze alarms. But anyways, the GD-010, no snooze, all right? The timer goes up to 24 hours, all right? And you get that animation going. Let me get my pointer pen. The mini bolt action pen by Right in the Rain. But yeah, you have that. You have it clearly marked as timer function. And then you have, tenths of a second going, and the seconds and the minutes. It goes up to 24 hours on the timer. And you can keep it running in the background. The next mode is a stopwatch. And you can run this concurrently with a timer. You also have an animation. And you have 1/100ths of a second. Isn't that fantastic? Seconds, minutes, and it goes up to, well, you know what? I can't remember what it goes up to now. But once it gets to that, it cycles around. I think it's 24 hours. I did check before I started filming. I looked at the manual, but now I can't even remember how high it goes. I'm going to say 24 hours without even knowing. Now we're back to the main time screen. Okay. And so the main time screen has a day of the week, the date, the time, the seconds, and then these other indicators here. Okay. So mute if you didn't want those chime noises like you heard when you cycle through the functions. You can turn off those noises. And in that case, the mute box will be marked. You have the alarms, and I guess I haven't set any alarms on this watch. And then you have the hourly time signal. I did set that. Okay, daylight savings time is on. Now, what goes in this space right here? Well, I'll tell you what. If you hold down the light button, which is front and center, you get a front and center light bulb button, then you can turn on the automatic light function, where if you flip your wrist up, the screen illuminates. Okay, so that's welcome. We like to see that. We like that. We want that. That's a good function. But oh, you hear that beeping? Let me hold it close to my microphone. That beeping is from the timer. All right, so the timer's running in the background. It was a 2-minute timer. Okay, and so that expired, and now we have the stopwatch going. Which, like I said, people are going to tell me that I'm a dummy. They're going to go in the comments and say that I should have checked. Well, yes, I am a dummy. Yes, I did check, but I am so much of a dummy I already forgot. Anyways, we're getting sidetracked by me. Back to the main time screen. Okay, so solid B watch means no solar charging, no multiband 6. Yes, I would love to have that. In previous videos about the GD-010, some have kind of cynically remarked that, yes, G-Shock would probably add solar in the next iteration of the GD-010. And then even after that, and then in a further iteration, add multiband 6. Like they'll string us along each year paying for upgraded GD-010s. Maybe that's what they're going to do. I don't know. Okay. But there's no Bluetooth on this either. Okay, so I got my Kaiweets detector for electromagnetism, and we're going to be using this to test all of our Bluetooth devices. This is going to be a fixture on the Jim Kincaid YouTube channel. Something is over. What is that? That is my wireless mic. All right, I'm wearing a wireless mic, so that the audio is crystal clear for all you gentlemen, and I am subjecting myself to unsafe levels of electromagnetic radiation. See that? It's just over. And the screen turns red. It's unsafe. I think we all know what's going to happen. There's going to be no, see where it says sensor area? There's going to be no electromagnetic radiation coming from this on Bluetooth or any sort of functionality on the watch. I have it right near the sensor area, and we are at a safe level. So there you go. That's the advantage, one of them, of having such a basic watch, is that we're not getting bombarded with a background level of electromagnetic radiation from any radio in there broadcasting a signal, whether it be Bluetooth or 2.4 gigahertz, anything. Some of these other watches do have Bluetooth, and we will test their levels of electromagnetic radiation, okay? As you just saw, my wireless mic is blasting me right now. And if I survive this video, then in other ones, we will, you know, we got a whole bunch of watches, you know? Like some of these Smarty Pants watches. The Casio G-Shock. We'll try some others. My wife has a Fitbit. Maybe we'll even put these head-to-head with a Garmin. See what type of electromagnetism we're being subject to by wearing these devices. But when you get a B watch, you know, a solid B, which is the GD-010, that is not a concern. Okay, anyways, back on track. So the main time screen does have this extra bonus feature, okay? Now, I think it was Gary Hunt that pointed this out to me in a previous video. You have multiple time zones that you can scroll through from the main time screen, okay? You do not need to go to the secondary time zone to view other time zones. The GD-010 is a fantastic watch for a traveler, someone who travels through time zones frequently, whether it be through aircraft or a trucker. This would be a good trucker's watch because you have several different time zones you can scroll through. Okay, so on the main time screen, you press start. And now I'm seeing time zone 2, which is New York City time zone. This is my brother's time zone. He lives in Boston. So, sup. This is London time zone. So, the time bombardier. G'day. And this is the Paris time zone 4. Bonjour. And now we're back to the Chicago time zone, which is a Texas time. Howdy. Okay, you see how that works? Now there's 4 time zones in the continental United States. And so a trucker could have each one of these set, and then as he crosses the state lines into different time zones, can scroll through them as needed. And then, of course, his home terminal time will always be time zone 1. Okay, so this makes this a good watch for a trucker, okay? Now you still have a second time zone, or a second whole nother function that will display the time in your secondary location. So from the main time, you press mode and you go to the world time. Now the advantage of this is that you can quickly scroll through the time zones by using the reverse and forward buttons, which are also the start and reset buttons. So I have this time zone set for the mountain time, which for Casio watches is den, because everybody who lives in the mountain time zone has a den. It's their hunting den where they have all their trophies, okay? Like Tim Johnson, he's a mountain time zone denizen. Den is zen, right? And so he has a lot of hunting trophies. One of his last videos that I saw of the Vair watch he was reviewing, he had a bunch of, I think it was pheasants he bagged. And he had a really cool shot of his watch on top of a pile of dead animals that he shot. So you can go east and west through the time zones in this world time function. So shout out to everybody in the YHZ time zone watching my channel. So you go east or west with these buttons through the time zones, okay? Mexico City, Denver, and then you have the Pacific time zone, okay? And so this function is pretty useful, that if you want to check time for where time it is in a certain time zone before you make a phone call. You don't want to, if you're in the New York City time zone, probably want to scroll over and see what time it is on the West Coast before you make a telephone call to someone over there. Same thing as if you have to contact Europe or Asia or wherever, all around the world. You can just quickly scroll through the world, and then if you hold down the button, you can go really quickly, okay? We're flying across the planet. We're circumnavigating the globe just by holding down this button on our G-Shock. Amazing. All right, now the alarms, like I said, 5 alarms, easy to set. And since there's no app, you got to set them the old-fashioned way. You have to hold down the adjust button until your numbers start blinking. And I always have I always set my watches for 7 a.m. All my watches are set to the same time in terms of the beeping. And one of them is 7 a.m. And then timer, we already heard the timer. The stopwatch is still rolling. It was 11 minutes ago when I started it, and it's still chugging away. 1/100th of a second. That's great. Like a lot of these newfangled, highly advanced G-Shock watches, they cannot display the 1/100th of a second due to the MIP screen refresh rate. And I've been saying the whole time, okay, I know you can't display it while it's running, but when I press stop, could you please show me fractions of a second? And these watches cannot do that. okay? GD-010 can. Okay, it's a solid B watch. And you'd think, oh, it's inferior in every way to these advanced watches. No, sir. Solid B is the way to be sometimes, because you just want that 80% of a watch, and the GD-010 gives you that. And I will leave a link below in the description of this video. You can click on it and go to G-Shock and buy this watch if you are interested. Last I checked, $110 retail, and that is like, for a new G-Shock watch at retail price is a good level. It's a good price point for a solid B watch. Okay, if you want more, you're going to pay more. So save some money. Just get a watch that tells the time with huge numbers. Look at those numbers. They're huge. These numbers are on the level of the AE 1500 and the new AE 1600, which, look at that. It's attached. They're attached to each other like crabs in a barrel. Let's look at the AE 1600 because it's a new one. These numbers are giant, okay? And the GD-010 aren't as thick, aren't as big, but still very big, okay? So if you have any type of like moderate or slight visual impairment, the GD-010 is a good option for a G-Shock. If you have good eyesight, maybe it's corrected by glasses or contacts. Still a good watch that, at arm's length, you can see the time. Other people can see the time. These numbers are big. Obviously, not like the huge numbers that Casio reserves for its lowest tier watches, but, still big, all right? Now, I've done a whole video where I've compared the big numbered G-Shocks. All right, it's actually a little bit bigger than the Mudman, okay? And definitely bigger than the Rangeman, all right? I'm talking about the numbers here. The size of the watch we'll compare in the next segment. But and then the GW6900 bigger. And the other thing too is that the numbers are in the center of the screen. And so you got big numbers, and these crenellations will not obscure your viewing of the numerals, okay? The GW6900 or the DW6900, see that shroud over the front and center light button? It obscures the numbers pretty quickly as you rotate the watch, because the numbers on the 6900 are not only smaller, but they are at the bottom of the screen, all right? Now, the viewing angle itself of the LCD, as you can see, you can kind of lose it. I can make that out. Looking with my naked eyes, I can still kind of make it out. But just the nature of the LCD screen, like looking at it not through the camera, but with my naked eyes, yeah, 1153. You kind of have to use some extra bit of discernment, because just the nature of LCDs at acute angles, you're going to lose the time, okay? And so these MIP watches, what makes them so amazing is that the viewing angle is terrific, all right? Where did I put all of my MIP watches? Just had a bunch of them as I was comparing them. Well, let's just look at the DWH 5600, okay? Look at this sick puppy. There's a heart rate monitor. It has Bluetooth connection. It has solar assist, as we've seen with the GD-010. It's not tough solar. Okay, these MIP watches have solar assist. Now, upcoming, you guys know, and you guys told me in the comments that a new G-Shock watch is coming with an MIP screen and tough solar, which, according to rumor, will keep the watch going all the time. All right, that's not the case with the DWH 5600 or the Rangeman, GPR H100, GPR H1000, or the GBD H2000, Solar charging can't do it all. But anyways, we're getting sidetracked because we're looking at the viewing angle. See at what acute angle you can still read the time on the MIP screen. It's visible until you lose it in the glare of the face. It's just amazing how great the viewing angles are and the legibility is on that MIP screen. Okay? Now the GD-010, big numbers, legible, face on, okay? And then you can kind of lose it. Okay. Now, a lot of these G-Shock watches and Casio watches have this bug/feature, this attribute, shall we say. We're looking face on. It's not as crisp as at slight angles. See? We're looking at this face on, dead center of the screen, right angle to the watch face, and it's a little washed out. Now, let me just turn it, what I would estimate to be 5 or 10 degrees aft. I think that's aft. Can a pilot tell me if this is aft? I'm gonna tilt it towards the starboard side, all right? Just by about 10, maybe 5 degrees. And suddenly this LCD screen gets way more crisp and darker, okay? This drives some people crazy, all right? We can tell who has OCD. Now, why would they do this? Because one theory is that they did it on purpose, because when you have the watch on, it's just natural that for it not to be perfectly dead on center, that if you want to kind of optimize the watch for an angle, you want it at a slight angle based on where practically you'd be looking at your wristwatch. But us YouTube reviewers, do you think that we wear watches? We hold them in front of a camera and we yell about them, okay? And so thank you to Casio for giving us something to yell about. The GD-010 has that exact same feature, or is it a bug? Is this planned? Okay? Straight, dead on, right angle to the watch face, and a little bit of blinking. Okay, the blinking is not there in real life. The blinking is just from the frame rate of the camera and then these LCD lights, okay? So in real life, you're not going to get all that blinking, but let me just turn it a little bit, and oh my goodness, it's darker, all right? So I can't complain too much. It's a solid B watch, and Casio's doing that even with their $40 watches, all right? And will that happen on these big ones? Actually, I don't think I've checked on these. Well, I think it's kind of unfair because the Mudman, the GW9500, has a bunch of layers of plastic. And so there's so much glare, it's really hard to see where like the actual LCD is crisp. Okay. So I think that what I'm going to do with the Mudman, one of these Mudman GW9500s, is fill it with oil to kind of reduce the index of refraction between all of these layers of plastic, okay? So stay tuned for that video. But back to the GD-010, all right? Where you get the big numbers, you get the big legibility, and I just told you what the next segment would be. And what did I say it was? I can't even remember, okay? So I'm just gonna go the next segment being the size of the body. The size of the body of the watch. It's on the large side, okay? But it's big in a good way. That first of all, it does not stand too proud from your wrist. It's a manageable size, and it's smushed. That a lot of its mass has a greater circumference to the watch, so its mass is splayed out further along your wrist. Okay, so let me just hold it up to the one of the biggest meatballs I have of G-Shock watches, the King. Okay, so the King is like the premier of the meatballs, and nobody wants to say this, but so is the GPR H1000. That when you're wearing it, you get a meatball. Okay, they're both meatballs, meaning that the way that they wear on your wrist has a meatball effect. That's why I call them meatballs. Okay, some people who are more intelligent and have, actual careers in education create the Tim Johnson chunkiness factor, where it's an advanced algorithm based on the length and width of a watch. Way too advanced for me, okay? I just wear it and I'm like, this feels like a meatball, okay? The GD-010 does not feel like a meatball, okay? Compare the size of the GD-010 to the king of the meatballs, and you can see that it is big, but it's manageable, okay? While wearing this watch at work, I do a lot of maintenance on diesel equipment, okay? Tractor trailer trucks and also diesel-powered oil field equipment, okay? It's all mounted on tractor trailer trucks. And while wearing it, I found the size to not be too obtrusive. I was able to reach into places pretty well. Obviously not as well as the more diminutive G-Shock watches. The most diminutive of all being the Casio. I mean, I've never worn a watch so unobtrusive as the Casio. And most of the Casios don't really fit me that well. So I have a couple with these fabric bands, which I think are terrific, okay? And I loved these. I don't wear this one as much because I struck this one with a Watch Bopper 5000. And I did do it some damage. Not to the watch body. The watch body is very durable, but you can see that the pins aren't really solid anymore. And, well, that proved my hypothesis that this whole system of strap adapter isn't the most durable, okay? So, anyways, this is the most diminutive watch. If you need to reach into places, like if you are a vet and you do a lot of like cow prolapses, this would probably be the best watch, which is the Casio. But for oil field equipment, I found this one to be pretty good, okay? Now, one of my favorite in terms of working on oil field equipment, being a mechanic. I'm not a mechanic. My mechanics would laugh at the idea of me being a mechanic. But, you know, if the Mudman was an optimization of strength and size, okay? That what it offers to you in durability and mud resistance and filth resistance is terrific, okay? It's a great size. Now, the GD-010 is a very similar size, okay? And so, but it's not as durable, all right? And one other very important thing I want to point out to those of you who get very dirty, okay, whether you're fixing cow prolapses as a vet or fixing or replacing hydraulic oil filters in the oil field, that this slides around a lot when it's on your wrist. For me, at least, like if I'm really sweaty or really dirty, like I'm coated in hydraulic oil from just having changed an oil filter, because somehow I cannot do that without getting myself messy. All right. A lot of my coworkers are able to do their job without getting too dirty. Not me. You see how there's no wings, so that allows a freer, carefree feeling. You know, you get air under there. It helps with the sweat. Well, if you get oil or a lot of sweat, it does slide around. Okay. So once it makes it past here, you might be doing loop-de-loos as you're engaging in whatever activity. Okay. And so that's something important to point out. Not so on the GW-9500. These wings are better at locking the watch in place on your wrist. And so while working, that's a good thing, you know, but it's like handcuffs, okay? And it did squash my wrist. The Mudman did squash my wrist. Notice how I have these indentations here that are not present on my right wrist. And I made a YouTube short video showing that. And that, you know, my right wrist is like 9 inches around and my left wrist is 8.5 inches. So that was just to get the Mudman on, okay? And some people in the comments were saying that this is all 9-inch wrist is totally and completely due to the obesity epidemic. That was the allegation from some European, I guess, saying that because that 9-inch wrist only exists in the United States. All right. Well, I have plenty of videos of myself online working out. I did post my physique. My detractors have not. If you want to see what I look like, full body, you can see me working out while I'm testing the heart rate monitor on the GDB-H2000. All right. So you guys be my judge. Am I fat? Anyways, speaking of fat, this watch is is good for someone who has big bones, but not for someone who is suffering disastrously from the obesity epidemic, which, I mean, I'm just going to go on a little bit of a rant on the obesity epidemic. Europeans online love to say it's Americans. Okay. I think it's a global obesity epidemic based on some pictures I've seen of modern day Asians and Europeans. There's no way that you could say that this is uniquely American. All right. There are some really thick boys and girls out here, especially in Texas, you know. But I would not say that it's uniquely American. Anyways, I think it's important to get in shape and to be healthy. All right. And there is a difference between being big boned and being obese. All right. And yes, my weight has gotten out of control before. I did find that these fitness watches helped a lot, way more than I thought they would. I've made some videos about that. Tim Johnson said that like he got in shape too. I don't know if you guys seen, but he said that these green lights that come on, like suck the fat out of your body, right? And it did help a lot. The step counters too. So the step counters are valuable. I do have a bunch of step counter watches. If you're looking for a really cheap step counter watch, check out this Casio watch that is not only small, diminutive, but it has a large band, which is good. You know, you're getting back in shape. What's this model number? I can't remember. It is the WSB 1000. So it can hook up to the same app, the Casio Watches app, that these other smart watches do. It has a step counter. The step counter can be fooled by things like driving a tractor trailer truck. Right? I drove from Odessa to Ozona, and it thought I ran there based on the steering wheel vibrations. So this step counter isn't as good, but this watch is very affordable. Okay? And so if you want to take control of your health, just start walking. All right? Just walk a little bit, walk a mile each day. It sounds like a lot, it's not. Get up off the couch. Have some goals set into your step counter. This is recorded 0 steps, but you see, you press this button, it can change from the date to your steps. All right. Little side note, okay, just from bringing up obesity. But the reason why I'm mentioning that is that the GD-010, the band is not like that long, but the band splays out really wide. So if you're like Jim Rose or someone who has a 2x4 wrist where you really do have big bones that a lot of watches just don't fit well, then the GD-010 will. And I'm talking about the wide space between your ulna and your thulna, which are the two bones in here. That's not their actual names. That's just what I remember them being. Johan van der Sant told me what they were. I already forgot. Like I said, kind of a dummy. My IQ is high double digit, but there's two bones in your wrist. So your wrist ends up being like a 2x4. I think I have a 2x4 around here somewhere. Do I? No, I don't. I thought I did. You know, I got this little piece of wood just as a demonstration. See how the wood's pretty wide? It's about the shape of a wrist bone. And the shape that this watch makes is just what you want for a wide wrist, okay? And so, you know, see how it fits? It fits wide, all right? There's a little bit of a demonstration. So Pinocchio, if you're like an adult Pinocchio, that you're made of wood, and the wood just happens to be the size, great watch for you. Or if you have one of those fabled 2x4 wrists, good watch for you. You can see, look how it splays out. It has a nice big fat belly, and then a wide watch crotch, which is the term I give for the area underneath. And I don't want to go on and on about this particular subject because I made a whole video called How It Fits, the GD-010, where I compare this watch. I actually take out my tape measure and measure the watch crotch of a bunch of various G-Shock watches, including the GW-9400, to give you guys an idea. Really, there are like two main tiers of watch crotch when it comes to the G-Shock watches. And I don't have many of the small ones because they don't fit. But if you got a Casio, well, actually, this is probably the best example. This is meant to be an updated square, the G-Shock square, the 5600s. You can see that it has a pretty narrow watch crotch with a steep angle of how the band comes off the face of the watch, right? But this has a wider watch crotch and a gentler angle, okay? And so the fit of this is good for you 2x4 wristers, but be aware that it will slide around, okay, if on sides on around, but it gives you like a nice airy feeling. Like you get some air under the watch. It doesn't feel like handcuffs. So you'll want to frolic, okay? Now, the Mudmaster, $800 is what I paid for this. It's up to $880 now. They brought the prices up. It's heavier than the GD-010, okay? And it has these plastic wings. And it has a metal buckle. And so, you know, this is a premium watch. Right? It's metal. Look at all the premium features. Metal buttons, mud resist buttons. Look at this beefy front and center light button. That's beefy. That's metal, right? The button's metal, the shroud's metal. And it's just like on your wrist, and it's cinched down and it's tight and you feel it, okay? The GD-010, plastic. It's light. It splays out. It's going to be on your wrist, and it gives you that kind of like free feeling, like, oh, I saved a lot of money by only paying $110 for a watch, not $880, you know? So I'm speaking to some of you cheapskates. But some of you value seekers, shall we say, and I'll just use Termit as an example, will be quick to point out that it does have kind of a cheap feeling, especially with this front and center light button. All right, this is like, to me, being a child of the 80s, this is like Happy Meal toy tier buttons, all right? And some of these G-Shock watches have what I would call Happy Meal tier toy feeling. And let me find one that is the best example of this. If it's in here, where did it go? It's gone. I was gonna pull out the G-Shock version of this watch, and I just realized it's not in the case. I got a bunch of watches I got to sort through. It's not in here. What is it? The GBD-500? It's gone. I don't know where it went. All right, well, stay tuned. I'll do another video on that one. That one just did not fit. That one, that fitness watch was small, which is nice, about this size, but the band was too small. I could not even get it on at all. But anyways, oh, here it is. Guys, here it is. Anyways, look at how this is put together. It's like clipped together, right? And being a child of the 80s, the only places where I'd see like stuff clipped together like that is toys. Happy Meal toys, mostly, right? And so the front of this G-Shock watch is kind of like clipped on, where you have like one of these barbs that hold on to the front of the watch. So there's no screws, all right? Which may have advantages. I'm not going to be like, oh, this is terrible, but it does have like a cheap feeling. And I don't think the GBD-500 is cheap. All right? I think it's a pretty cool watch. Hard to read, but the band's too small, just absolutely too small. Even on my smaller wrist, I don't even think I could get it onto notch number 1. All right? Yeah, see? And then on my bigger wrist, forget about it. I won't even try. But anyways, the GBD-500, you see how no screws, bezel clipped, sandwiched together. You know how those of you who grew up in the 70s and the 80s, remember how like you'd go to the hobby store and they'd sell models, and like you could get the models where you'd have to get like the rubber cement and cut every little part out and glue it, or you could get like the models for dummies like me where it's like everything just clips together and it's like level 1, ages 5 to 8, and I'd be like, 12, 13, like, oh, perfect. This is just for me. Anyways, this button is kind of like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's kind of cheap. I don't know how else to say it. So the new AE 1600 has a front and center light button, and it's the same thing. It's just, it's plastic, and I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that like, it's probably because of coming off of wearing the Mudmaster for so long, everything feels cheap after you're wearing the Mudmaster because this is such a premium watch. But it's like you press the button on this sucker and, you know, cha-ching, cha-ching. That's the sound it should make. Cha-ching, not beep. Cha-ching. And then you know, on the GD-010, you know, it's like the sound of, like, I don't know, Scrooge McDuck or something. Like, you've saved a lot of money. You have a lot of money, but you just keep it in a vault and you swim in it, you know? Speaking of swimming, this watch, you know, is a G-Shock. It's as durable as any G-Shock in terms of its standard level of durability. You get 200 meters of water resistance, which, you know, we talk about this a lot. Obviously, nobody goes 200 meters down. I mean, you have saturation divers that are way, way, way underwater. And here in Texas, there are a number of saturation divers, you know, since I think that most often they're employed by the oil industry. But anyways, it's an indirect indication of how durable the watch is, right? And obviously different companies, their 200 meters of water resistant must be like different. I don't know how some watches say that they're so water resistant, and like you can't wear it in the pool. You can't wear your diver's watch in the pool. It might ruin it, right? Not so with G-Shock watches, right? 200 meters of water resistance, and you can watch videos of these going down underwater, and also amateurs testing them in pressure chambers. I find it more interesting to see them actually plummet through the depths on special rigs where, you know, you have underwater cameras showing you that these are actually water resistant to deep levels. And even though I'm not going to be diving 200 meters down, I mean, I don't even know how deep that is. It's a metric system. I guess it's like 660 feet, right? The deepest I go, probably like 12, maybe 15, but then my ears start to hurt and I have to come up for air. But anyways, durable watch. So I don't want anybody to think that the GD-010 is not durable or less durable, but within the G-Shock lineup, they all meet the minimum threshold of durability. And then from there, some are more durable than others. Mudman, in my experience, extremely durable. I am amazed by how tough, mud resistant, filth resistant, and durable the Mudman is, the GW9500. That makes it my favorite watch. Not in terms of comfort. It's definitely not the most comfortable. In terms of durability, it's up there. Some people ask if it's more durable than the 9400. In my opinion, yes, because the 9400 does not have the plastic wings. Now, is it more durable than the King? Well, you know what? This is not about the durability of these various watches. We'll talk about in an upcoming video, okay? We're talking about the GD-010. So I would appreciate it if you guys would stop sidetracking me with tangents. So the buttons, and even the buttons on the side, you know, they don't feel premium at all. They feel economy, okay? So this is like, you know, your Ford tier watch, and then, you know, the Mudmaster be your Lincoln tier watch. Or if you're in GM universe, this is your Chevy, and then the Mudmaster would be like your Cadillac, right? Maybe that's a better example, but I am Ford. I think in terms of Ford, I have a bunch of Fords and I like Ford. Anyways, you still have some of this diamond stippling on each of the buttons, but the buttons are plastic. So they are light and they are economy, okay? And so they're fine to press. You have these shrouds. I did do a glove test, and I can't remember exactly what I determined. I think that with my gloves, my impact gloves, which have my name Jim on them, my Gym Pack gloves, at work, I tested them, made a video, and I don't think that they did that well in the glove test, okay? So if gloved button pressing is important to you, know that the Mudman and the Mudmaster are specifically designed for gloved button pressing, and both of these excelled at that. They have shrouds that protect the buttons, and the buttons are shaped in such a way that there's just enough sticking out that even while wearing gloves, you can press all the buttons, including the light button. Now, on the GD-010, while wearing gloves, if I remember correctly, And if you are interested in this, watch my video about it. But the light button, I think that I was able to press it using some of the stitching on the glove. But I think that I had trouble pressing the side buttons with gloves. But that might not matter to a lot of you. Anyways, these buttons have the case shrouds the buttons, so the buttons are big and rectangular. All right. Well, some guys who are like geometry professionals might point out these actually aren't rectangular. Maybe they're like octagonal but wide, and so I don't know what the geometric name for an octagonal shape is that's like rectangular, because an octagon, you know, it has 8 sides, right? So how many sides do these buttons have? I'm going to have to count them now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, so octagonal, but 2 of the sides, 2 of the parallel sides are wider than the other 2, okay? There's probably a name for that, and some of you are probably smart enough to know that name, and I know that because there's some YouTuber, and I forget his name, who pointed out that square watches are not squares, they're octagonal, yes. And that same gentleman also pointed out that the formula on the watches are incorrect, okay? So if you get this NASA edition GW6900 and press the light button, the formula for gravity is supposed to pop up there, right? And the light button's not, I guess you can't see it. But anyways, the formula, they forgot the gravitational constant, G. And so they have gravity being the ratio of 2 masses, which, you know, there is that relationship, but they did not have the gravitational constant, which is ironic since, you know, G-shock, G means gravity. So maybe that's where it's supposed to be. But also they have this formula for impact, which, according to that same gentleman, is not the formula for impact. This is the formula for kinetic energy. Half of the mass times velocity squared. Okay, they have that labeled as impact. I guess impact is more of an advanced algorithm. My 2 oldest sons are studying engineering. And, you know, so I looked through some of their engineering material, and, you know, the impact is like a way more advanced formula. But again, we're getting sidetracked, guys. We have to stick to the GD-010. Why did this even come up? Why are we talking about the formula for gravity and the formula for impact when this is a review video of the GD-010 by G-Shock, which I'm saying is a solid B watch, which is not a bad thing. B does not stand for bad when it comes to the GD-010. The B stands for big, bold, and basic, okay? It's B. If you got like a B in physics in high school, probably not going to go on to study the intricacies of the formula for impact, okay? B is good enough to get out of high school, you know, start working. I mean, if you really want to do more school, you better be good at it, and you better get A's. All right. So these buttons, you know, good to press. And so overall, I think that this is a good value watch, good economy watch. A lot of you will be happy with this. And there's like 6 or 7 different versions of this, different colors, okay? And a few of them have negative screens. They're inverted screens, meaning that the screen is black and the numbers are white. Now, obviously, it's not white or black. It's just, you know, the screen is dark and the numbers are light, as opposed to this screen where the screen is light and the numbers are dark, okay? So how legible are those? Well, I would like to find out. I would like to kind of like compile my opinion of legibility when it comes to the AE 1600, which also has negative screens in big numbers. See how legible those negative ones are. Compare it to a negative screen of the GD-010. And also throw in some of like these more classic G-Shocks, such as the King, which is the king of poor legibility because of not only does this have a negative LCD screen, but it's recessed in a giant case and the numbers are small. I don't think the numbers are that small, but given the size of the watch, they appear small. So it's an optical illusion. And if it's not an optical illusion, it sure looks like one. Now, the MIP screens solve a lot of that. G-Shock has an obsession with the inverted screen. They just love the inverted screen. In the MIP watches, they finally have that inverted screen that they want to foist upon us, and the legibility. So I was fine with the legibility on the MIP screen. I enjoyed it, even though the screen is negative. Some of you insisted that G-Shock still make a negative or an MIP watch with a positive screen. Well, that watch is coming very soon. You have to buy it separately. It is the GD-010 with a positive screen, and it's only positive. Now, the positive or negative nature of a screen is based on software. And to demonstrate this, Citizen will show you. See how they have that subdial that is negative? Well, boom, now it's positive, okay? I did not physically alter that MIP screen by rotating the polarizing film. I pressed the button, and the button looks like a crown. It's not a crown, it's a button. But I pressed the button, and the screen inverted. So to invert a MIP screen, it's totally software-based. But in G-Shock world, it's money-based. Oh, you want a inverted screen? Well, pay up for a totally new watch. Wow, what great guys. Am I right? Anyways, I was interested in seeing the legibility of the negative GD-010. But what happened was that the one that I wanted was released at the same time that I was saving up $800 to buy the Mudmaster. And that was the GD-010 that had the Cordura band. Okay, that looked a lot like this. And this is Eco cotton. Okay, but there was a GD-010 that kind of had this color arrangement, and it had a Cordura band. And I do have a Cordura band. I love these G-Shock Cordura bands. I love them way more than I thought I would. I thought they'd be soggy, and I was wrong. They dry really quickly, and they're nice. Okay? And it's sold out. I just looked this morning. It's sold out. Okay? And so everybody was like, oh, Jim, you got to, review the Mudmaster. I'm like, all right. Well, now I have to save up $800. So I had to put a pause on all my other watch buying. And in that time, the GD-010 with the negative screen and the Cordura band sold out. So I'm going to see if I can get my hands onto it another way. But anyways, the question still remains, is the negative LCD screen on the GD-010 good? And I wanted to find that out for myself, because a lot of these negative screens on the LCDs are bad, all right? And this GAV-01, that one has a negative screen. And I don't mind the negative screen so much on the anti-digi watches, because it kind of allows that subdial to blend in with the dial, with the background, and allows for greater legibility of the hands. That's my opinion. But here's an anti-digi watch with a positive screen, and this is the GAB 2100 CTE. Anyways, the feature of this video was the GD-010, a solid B watch. B does not stand for bad. B stands for big, bold, and basic. You want that basic watch? You got it. You want solar charging and multi-band 6? Well, I do too. Unfortunately, it's not on here, but you can save some money by not having those features, right? Set the watch yourself the old-fashioned way. Hold down the adjust button, and you just set the time, right? It's that easy. It's like a good old-fashioned watch. Right now, it retails for $110, all right? And then you have that ability to scroll through the time zones. Now, on the main time screen, I am not such a big fan of that, just because if you accidentally press the button, you might be in a different time zone and not realize that you are, with the subtle distinctions between the different time zones you have displayed. Like I said, 4 time zones. You can select the 4 time zones that appear on the main time screen. And then I believe there's a button combination you can press to quickly change which one is your main time. Let's say that I was visiting my brother. And there you go. I just switched it, right? So now my time zone, Central Time, is time zone 2. Now, what if I was in Paris, you know, getting some bread and cheese, let's just say. Boom, that easy. Press these 2 buttons. I just land in Paris. I get out. Bonjour, je m'appelle Jim. All right, it's 6:30 p.m. By the way, speaking of Paris, let me see if I got an optional knife. Where is it? Speaking of Paris, I have this French-made steel knife by Opinel that is specifically for bread. All right, the French know their bread. Okay, they call it pain. You know, they love it so much it hurts, right? And so this is a serrated knife that has the perfect angle for bread that you have to saw through. Now, in the American West, we have this bread. It's called sourdough. We have this whole category of American called sourdough Americans. That's what I call them. Women who get their own sourdough going, which is a special fermentation process of the dough. And that bread is tangy. It's delicious. However, the crust, very turtle-like. You know, the little loaf of sourdough bread is like a little turtle or a big turtle. It's like a turtle, and you have to saw through it, okay? And so the Opinel, the French-made steel knife, terrific angle, and a wooden handle. The Opinel knife, this has been fantastic. I'll leave a link below in the comments if you're interested in an Opinel knife. And I do have a folding Opinel knife, very basic, very, very basic, just metal and wood. And it's like an old knife that you'd see like an old-timey sailor used to cut cordage. I don't have it now, so I'll show you in another video, but Opinel knives are really cool. And my wife likes this one. She is a sourdough American. If your wife is a sourdough American, here you go. Great gift idea for cutting bread, all right? Opinel knife. I'll leave a link below in the comments, or in the description, that is. But anyways, we're getting sidetracked. Why did this even come up? Oh, yes, the reason it came up is because I changed the time zone on my watch to Paris, all right? You might need this walking around the streets of Paris based on what I've heard. But I know a lot of you gentlemen are watching from France. Some of you from the French countryside, where it is safe and full of Frenchmen. And I've also had a gentleman chime in from Alsace, Lorraine, and gave me some good tips in terms of recipes, which we have tried and we've liked, all right? So anyways, let me get the time zone back to Texas so I can get back in a Texas mindset where I'll be thinking of barbecue and not bread. All right, here we go. I'm back. It's that easy to change the time zone on the main screen. So like I said, if you are a trucker, and there's 4 main time zones in the United States, and there's a little variation here and there because some of them observe daylight savings, some of them don't. But just basically, you switch through time zones if you're a trucker, or if you are a traveler, that you have main time zones you travel among. This watch makes it very easy to change your time zones. And I'm wondering if Bills coach Sean McDermott, who I have confirmed, based on my assessment, wears an AE 1500. I'm wondering if Sean McDermott would prefer the G-Shock GD-010 because, if he has to go and play, let's just say, the Chiefs, all right? I don't remember where they're playing, but let's say he's playing the Chiefs. All right, Kansas City, what time zone is that in? Like Buffalo's in the New York time zone. So if he gets to Kansas City, he can quickly change the time zone, right? And then if he goes to play the Broncos, that's in the Mountain time zone, so he can quickly change it, just like I showed you. Hold down these 2 buttons, change the time zone. Or if he plays a game in London. Did the Bills play in London? I don't know. Who played in London this year? I forget. But, the NFL is expanding. So maybe Coach Sean McDermott would like the G-Shock GD-010. So one of you guys watching who's on the Bills, You know, be like, hey, coach, check out the GD-010. And Coach Sean McDermott will be like, yes, I saw that on the Jim Kincaid YouTube channel. You know, maybe they could make a special color for the Bills. I'm a Patriots fan, by the way. So, you know, but I do like the Bills. You know, on this YouTube channel a long time ago, I used to talk a lot about NFL football. And I made friends with a bunch of Bills fans because we were fighting. All right. But that's how you become friends, is fighting, right? If you were a man. And anyways, so the time zone thing. And like I said, I'm not like a huge fan of the time zone thing because I'd hate to accidentally change it. So after this video, I will probably make all 4 time zones just be Chicago, which is a central time zone, so I don't confuse myself because I'm a dummy. And then when I go into New Mexico and someone starts using local time, which in eastern New Mexico in the oil field, most of us just stay on Texas time. But let's just say that someone had the wise idea of using the mountain time. Well, it would be easy enough to find. I'll just keep my world time function set to Denver time, okay? And usually you have to go all the way as far as Artesia, New Mexico, for them to all be using the local time. You know, in like Jal or Eunice, especially Eunice. I bet I wouldn't be surprised if the whole city of Eunice stays on Texas time. I mean, like they're so close to the border. Anyways, gentlemen, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through him. I'm Jim Kincaid. Thanks for watching.